Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a thriller, sci-fi film from 2007, titled Sunshine. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. It's the year 2057, and mankind is facing extinction because the sun is dying. 8 astronauts are chosen to board the spaceship Icarus I and carry a colossal stellar bomb with the mass equivalent of Manhattan Island with the intent of jump-starting the sun, but the spaceship gets lost before they can reach the star. Since they lose communication with Earth after a certain point, nobody knows what has happened to them. 7 years later, while Earth is freezing in a solar winter, a new crew of 8 is sent out in the Icarus II to try again. First, it's Searle, the ship's doctor and psychological officer, who has become obsessed with watching the sun. He even asks the Icarus AI to refilter the observation room panel to allow him to see as much brightness as possible without burning himself. This is such an amazing experience for him that over dinner, he recommends doing it to the whole crew: the engineer James Mace, the pilot Cassie, biologist Corazon, the communications officer and second-in-command Harvey, the ship's captain Kaneda, the navigator Trey, and the physicist in charge of the bomb Robert Capa. But none of them are attracted to the idea. Kaneda informs them that the solar wind reading is much higher than they'd anticipated at this distance, and soon they will be entering the dead zone, which means they won't be able to communicate with Earth anymore, so the crew should send home their last messages. Capa records a video for his parents and his sister, telling them they can't contact him back, but they'll know if they've succeeded if the sun comes out by the time they get this message. However, he takes so long in recording this, that there isn't any time left for his crewmates to do the same, and this enrages Mace, who tries to start a fight with him. After the others separate them, Mace is sent to talk to Searle, who tells him he has lost track of time and prescribes him 2 hours in the Earth room, which is a chamber that simulates their home in order to calm them down. Meanwhile, Kaneda continues to watch the old reports sent by Pinbacker, the captain of Icarus I. While Corazon assures him her garden is producing plenty of oxygen and that's not the problem the previous crew had, Kaneda is still worried, especially when he sees Pinbacker describe some damage his ship got as beautiful. A distraction is welcome, however, when Cassie discovers they're passing by Mercury, so the whole crew goes to the observation room to watch it. Sometime later, while checking comm systems, Harvey makes an important discovery: a transmission playing the distress signal from the Icarus I, which is reaching them thanks to the ship reaching the dark side of Mercury and the iron content of the planet acting like an antenna. Icarus simulates the first ship's trajectory on the screen, and they realize nobody picked up the signal until now because it was hidden in the background light and noise since the Icarus I actually managed to get pretty close to the sun. The crew starts discussing if it would be a good idea to adjust their trajectory and make contact with the Icarus I. Mace doesn't think it is a good idea because the mission is more important, and if they don't deliver their payload, everything dies. On the other hand, there may be survivors in the ship, plus extra oxygen and food they can use, and most importantly, an extra bomb that could give them a better chance at reigniting the sun. Since they can't agree if the risk is worth it or not, they leave the decision up to Capa because he has the physics knowledge to know what is best. After running the math with Icarus, he decides the extra bomb is worth the risk and tells them to fly towards Icarus I. The ship leaves Mercury's orbit after Trey adjusts their trajectory, but he makes a mistake. He has forgotten to realign the shields that protect the ship from the sun, causing damage to 4 panels which, if not repaired, could destroy the whole ship and kill the crew. Kaneda and Capa embark on a spacewalk to make repairs while Cassie guides them, angling the damaged portion of the shield away from the sun and causing the loss of 2 protruding communications towers that have no use right now. However, this also causes the reflected light to destroy the ship's oxygen garden and oxygen reserves, to Corazon's dismay, who has to watch how O2 is released to put out the fire. They need to re-angle the shield, but this would kill Capa and Kaneda, who are still not done with the repairs. Harvey and Cassie want to wait, but Mace reminds them that the priority is to protect the payload, and Kaneda agrees with him. So as Icarus uses autopilot to fix the ship's rotation, Kaneda sends Capa back inside and sacrifices himself to fix the last panel. Moments later, Searle needs to sedate Trey, putting him in a catatonic state, because the guilt is putting him at suicide risk. As the second-in-command, Harvey becomes the new captain, and he informs the crew that after what happened to the garden, they don't have enough oxygen to get them to their delivery point, let alone survive the journey, so now they have no other choice but to try to make contact with the Icarus I and hope they can salvage enough to continue the journey. After everyone else goes to take care of their chores, Mace, Corazon, and Cassie have a chat in private, where Corazon tells them that their current oxygen levels would be enough if they lose 3 people. Afterward, Cassie shares a little talk with Capa, telling him she is scared of dying, but he admits he is not. Once Icarus II finally docks with Icarus I, Capa, Searle, Mace, and Harvey go aboard to search the ship. Ignoring the fact lights don't work and the ship is full of dust, which most likely is human skin, they decide to split the group to search more effectively. Harvey finds the garden intact with 7 years of unchecked growth, which delights Corazon, while Mace confirms the second bomb is fully operational, and Searle checks for water and food, finding plenty of both. Mace discovers all systems are fine as well, except he isn't getting anything from the flight computer, and when he digs deeper in the files, a recording with a rambling message from Pinbacker starts playing. His face is burned, and he mentions they've abandoned the mission because they shouldn't defy God. The transmission code is from 6.5 years ago, exactly the time they were supposed to deliver the payload. Mace keeps on searching for an explanation and finds out the mainframe has been sabotaged, so they can't fly the Icarus I, officially making this detour completely pointless. Meanwhile, Searle enters the observation room and finally finds the crew. All the bodies are sitting in front of the panel, having let the sun burn them to ashes. Suddenly, the two ships explosively disconnect, destroying Icarus I's outer airlock and stranding the 4 men as the Icarus II starts to float away from them. They find only one suit they can use, so Mace and Searle agree to give it to Kappa, who has priority because he is the only one that knows how to operate the payload. Harvey protests against this, saying he should be the one with priority because he is the captain, but the others ignore his orders. However, Mace has one more idea that could save the rest of them. He takes insulation material from the walls of the ship to wrap themselves in it. This should be enough for them to resist the cold while jumping from one ship to another. There's only one problem. Because the computer isn't working anymore, one of them must stay behind to open the hatch, and Searle accepts to sacrifice himself and be the one to do it. Once Cassie aligns both airlocks, Searle releases the airlock and the other 3 men use the vacuum release for propulsion to jump between ships while holding on to each other. They are forced to let go though, when they accidentally hit the ship on their way out, and only Kappa makes it to the other airlock. Mace manages to hold onto a handrail, and thanks to this Kappa is capable to grab him and drag him inside with him, but Harvey floats away and freezes, dying from asphyxiation. Back in Icarus I, Searle has accepted his fate, so he goes to the observation room and sits next to the bodies to let the sun burn him while Cassie says her goodbyes through the comms. After triple checking the activity file, Mace is sure Icarus didn't disconnect the airlocks, and there wasn't a malfunction either, which means someone did it manually. Since the men were together in Icarus I and the women were together in Icarus II, the only remaining option is Trey. Kappa is skeptical because Trey is so deeply sedated, it is almost impossible for him to move enough to pull such a thing. Corazon also points out that now they have lost 2 breathers, only one more needs to go so they can survive the mission, and Mace accepts to be the one to kill Trey. Kappa thinks this madness is probably what happened to Icarus I, but he still agrees on doing it, because the future of mankind is more important. Corazon also agrees, but Cassie doesn't, not that it matters much, since it's 3 against 1. Mace leaves the crew behind and enters the infirmary. After grabbing an electric scalpel, Mace checks the bed, but Trey isn't there. He is actually sitting in the Earth room and he's already dead, having cut his own wrists. Mace calls the rest of the crew so they can see what happened, and once they are there, he blames the deaths on Kappa's decision to divert the mission and says the spilled blood should be his. Angry, Kappa tackles him and starts a fight, which doesn't last long because they have trouble breathing since the air is low. While checking on the payload, Kappa makes Icarus run a check on the crew's biometrics and oxygen consumption, and Icarus I informs him they are all going to die before delivering the payload because the oxygen is not enough. When Kappa gets confused and says the remaining oxygen should be enough for 4 people, Icarus tells him there is a 5th unknown person aboard, currently standing in the observation room. Kappa rushes there and finds the viewing panel bright with sunlight and standing in front of it, an insane and disfigured Pinbacker that keeps rambling about God, angels, humanity, and stardust. He was the one that decoupled the airlocks. Suddenly, he attacks Kappa, managing to cut his stomach with one of the electric scalpels before he runs out and asks Icarus to change the panel to full sunlight. This isn't enough to kill him, so he chases after Kappa until he enters the airlock and closes the hatch behind him. Pinbacker takes the chance to lock the door manually to stop Kappa from escaping before going to the coolant tank to remove the panels, which causes Icarus to shut down. Meanwhile, Corazon is staring at her burned garden when she notices a tiny little baby plant among the debris. She intends to tell the rest of the crew about it, but Pinbacker finds her and kills her by stabbing her with the scalpel. Back in the airlock, Kappa puts on the vest from one of the suits in an attempt to stop the bleeding and notices he cannot open the door as the power goes out in the entire ship. Cassie, who had been sleeping, also notices the lack of power and goes out to investigate with a flashlight in hand. When she finds Pinbacker, she runs out of there as fast as possible. In the control room, Mace reactivates the computer with an emergency battery, but Icarus won't answer. He sees Kappa on the security cameras and tells him to use the communicator on the suit helmet, so now Kappa can tell him about Pinbacker and his sabotaging. As soon as he hears this, Mace rushes to the coolant tank and submerges himself in the freezing water to reinstall the panels Pinbacker took out, managing to bring back power right before Pinbacker catches up with Cassie at the Earth room and tries to attack her. Luckily for her, he gets confused by the shadows and grabs Trey instead, so Cassie grabs the scalpel Trey had used and stabs Pinbacker before running out again, hiding in the room with the bomb. As his body slowly freezes to death because his leg is stuck in the coolant tank, Mace manages to contact Kappa to tell him they're in orbit, but the computer is down and he isn't sure he can make it work again, so he will have to separate the payload from the ship and detonate it manually. Mace dies while begging Kappa to finish the mission. Kappa puts on the astronaut suit and uses a torch to make a hole in the door that connects to the hallway, then he unscrews the lid that covers the emergency button and presses it after tying himself up to the wall. This causes the main hatch to be expelled, and the combination of the incoming pressure from outside and the hole on the metal makes the hallway door blow up, giving Kappa back access to the ship. After seeing Mace's frozen body, he goes to the control room and activates the separation procedure, then jumps out of the ship and into the now separated bomb room while Icarus II is burned away by the sun. Inside the bomb, he takes off the suit and comes closer to Cassie, who is sitting on the floor with a lost look on her face. He barely gets to say a word to her when Pinbacker ambushes them, grabbing Kappa by the neck and taking him over the edge of the bomb with the intention to drop him into the abyss while talking about the sun as if it was his god. It is then that Cassie snaps out of it and runs to help Kappa. Together they manage to lose his grasp by ripping the skin off one of his arms. The bomb is finally entering the sun now, so after being thrown around a bit by all the shaking, Cassie tells Kappa to finish it. He sees Pinbacker waiting for him by the edge of the bomb but decides to ignore him and concentrate on the mission, so Kappa rushes to the controls and activates the payload. The bomb explodes and Kappa watches how the sun is reignited, even reaching out to it before dying. Back on Earth, Kappa's sister watches his message one more time before taking her kids to watch the sunrise for the first time in years. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.